Hi, this is Daniel from TrustGraph, and today I'm going to show you how using the MCP Inspector, you can very quickly, in record time, create MCP agents using TrustGraph. We're going to use as an example this Yahoo Finance MCP server. Now, this is not ours. We have the attribution right here if you want to go check that out. Also, caveat, they make it very clear that this server is only for educational or research purposes only. Just want to put that out there. Don't want to violate anyone's T's and C's. But if you're looking at all this, you're probably thinking like, well, what do I do with all this? Um, how do I integrate all that? Well, the MC Inspector can give you a quick insight into how to integrate these kind of tools. Now, I have already quite a bit of this set up in TrustGraph, but let's go here. We have it running on port 9999. I'm just going to connect, and we go here to tools, and we list them. Now, as we'll see, these are all the tools that are available through this MCP server. And if we click on them, this will actually give us the opportunity to test it. So let's say like a stock ticker symbol that everyone knows, like Tesla. And we click run, and that's going to fetch quite a bit of information about Tesla. So we know this works. Now, most of these symbols, or excuse me, most of these tools are using stock ticker symbols. So if we look here, these are all the available tools and or remotes, keep that word in mind. And it gives a little information about what it does and gives you an opportunity how to test it. Okay, so get info and also keep this in mind. Keep in mind these terms. So we're seeing ticker here, we're seeing symbol here. Keep those things in mind. Now, let's go over to TrustGraph. And as I said, I've already done some configurations here. I've created 4 tools. I've done get ticker info, which again is the top. This is going to give us company info. We got news, price history, and get top. We're going to get to that one in a little bit too. And also, you might have noticed this. This has now come standard with any TrustGraph deployment. It's a DuckDuckGo search that you can very quickly integrate into any agent tools for external search. Now, this part we know well. We give it a tool ID name, and that's really the TrustGraph identifier. That's how TrustGraph will find this tool. The remote name, well, that needs to match this. So get ticker info, get ticker info. All of those need to match. And as you see, I tend to like to make these things match. It's just easier that way. There are ways you don't have to do it that way. I find it's just a little easier for me. There's lots of use cases down the road why you would want to be able to give them different names. But for now, it's just a little bit simpler. Let's go to the agent tools. So let's go to, I believe this one was first, get ticker info. So how would we do this? So tool name, again, I like to have those match. So I have them matching all the remote names just for simplicity. And I have a description. I wrote a slightly different description than they did, but all this is very sensitive. It kind of depends on the LLM you're using. And I'm going to talk about that quite a bit later. And as always, I'm using Mistral Medium 3.1. I like that as a really good middle ground. I like to show that these agentic flows don't need the GPT-5 class, Claude, Gemini 2.5 Pro models to work. It's a good middle ground model. And one of the things we're going to be working on very soon is making these work with much smaller SLMs that you can fully control as well. So name, description, we know where those are coming from. That's coming from here. Then tool type, again, we have 5 different kinds of tools right now. We would do MCP tool. And of course, we can also do this through the CLI. I'll show you that in a second. And these are your available tool IDs. And again, this is the TrustGraph names. Again, I just like to keep them all the same. It's a little bit, less information to keep track of. Groups, what is this for? This is something we haven't talked about yet. This is a way to create multi-agent within an agentic structure, as in having groups of tools that can only be used together coming very, very soon. Next state, that's also something that you will probably thinking, oh, what are those guys thinking there? Down here, these are the arguments. Now, this is where the NCP inspector comes in handy, because this would be a little tricky sometimes to figure out, what goes in these arguments. Well, that's what this means. This is the argument. This is what needs to be passed to the MCP server to make the request. So it needs to match this. And typically in the MCP inspector tool, if you see the red asterisk, that means it's required. So we need to make this, it's a symbol, it needs to be named symbol. Then we give a description of what it is. So that the agent knows what am I putting in this field, and it's a type string. Okay. Now let's look at one that's a little bit more complicated. This one, get top. What is that? And that doesn't even sound very descriptive either. What does that mean, get top? Because this one actually kind of perplexed me for a moment as well. So get top. Get top entities, ETFs, mutual funds, companies, etc., in a sector. Okay, and we need sector and top type, and they have to be that way as arguments for the tool. But I was also thinking, well, what goes here? Because in the NCP inspector, we're not really getting a lot of information. So what goes here? I initially thought, well, what if it's tech and companies? What happens? Let's test it. Uh-oh, we got an error. What does it say? Well, it actually tells us something really useful. It tells us what it should be, which is really helpful. Matter of fact, it tells us the input should be these choices. These are the types of sectors that it can be. So it shouldn't have been tech, it should have been technology. It also tells us what the inputs for top type should be, which again should be top mutual funds, top companies. See, I didn't have it right either. I didn't have top companies. So if we change this to technology, I spell it right, and then top underscore companies and run again, we'll get a successful response. So that gives us a clue. Again, let me just make this wrong again so we can see that error response. What I actually did is, well, I made part of it wrong. Let's make all of it wrong. There we go. We got all of it wrong. So this part right here, what the input should be, I put that in the description for the arguments. So we know it has to be sector and top type. So sector and top type. And then I put that error message in the description of what it should be. So the LLM will know what are the possible choices for sector and top type. Again, set it as an MCP tool, get top, and gave a little bit of information about it. So let's actually test this out. See what happens. So, oh, before I do that, I promised I would show you what the CLI looks like. So this is just a little script I put together where I defined all the MCP tools and some how I actually set the tools. How you do that, you have to set, the ID, name, type is MCP tool. Then you have to have the MCP pool name, which will, again, that will have to match this up here, the remote. Again, that's why I was saying a lot of kind of overlapping terminology. That's why I kind of like to keep all these things the same. So it's just less for me to remember. Also note, if you're watching this, you may, if you're one of the first people to watch this, you may find this before we fix the documentation. Turns out there was a little bit of an error in the documentation on how the arguments got passed around. It's kind of a Python arg parse issue. The documentation says you would put argument for, you'd put dash dash argument for each argument. You wouldn't do that. You would do it this way instead. You would either do, the line break or just doing it this way. So, and again, this is actually how you would do the DuckDuckGo search. DuckDuckGo, it's quite simple. It's just, it just uses query for its argument. If I go right here, I just call it a web search the internet using DuckDuckGo, and query, search query. Now I put together a couple of test cases. So let's try this one first. We go here and again, we select agent. It's going to use all those tools. We haven't created any collections, users, any of those things for this. And again, I'm using Mistral Medium 3.1. So what are we thinking? What's going to happen here? I'm giving it a stock ticker symbol, how it's performed this year. So that would be the price history. And then I'm asking it for some other information. So this should get it to pull some of that competitors. So it's going to actually have to, get a sector and look at some of that stuff. So let's see what happens. And this is going to happen pretty quickly because it's calling the server. It's going to be calling a lot of stuff. And again, the workbench is a demo tool. This is not meant to be an end user experience. So the chat doesn't do a lot of pretty formatting. It's just kind of dumping all the information into the chat. So you see a lot of, this looks like, JSON, you'll see some markdown, you'll see different things. And this typically means it's coming up with its final response right now, which we'll see all the things that it's come up with. And it's come up with quite a lot. Here we go. So as you see, let's actually step through it first to see what we come up with. So what did we ask? And we really asked it for three things. So the first thing it did, because we gave it the stock ticker symbol, so it used the get company info, and this is what the Yahoo Finance server will tell you for a company. This is what, if you put in Tesla, this is what it's going to get. Matter of fact, if we go back to do that, we'll see. Yeah, it starts off with address and all that stuff, and you can see that's what it starts off with. So that's what this is. It's quite a bit of information. So it got lots of information about Tesla, including that its sector, according to Yahoo Finance, is consumer cyclical. Don't ask me, that's Yahoo Finance. So we get price history. So this is, again, if we go over here, we'll see, again, that's the same thing. Those are the default period and interval. We haven't changed those. There it is. There it is. And this is also the get top. So if we were to do that, consumer cyclical and top companies, this is what we would get. Now that it's got all the information, Mistral Medium 3.1 has put together a full response with all the information that we asked it. Now, let's ask it a little bit something more complicated. I want to use everything. So let's ask it about CoreWeave, which is a company that just recently IPO'd. So what are we asking for here? Actually, maybe it'd be a little easier if we just look at it here. So I don't know what CoreWeave stock symbol is. Well, I do now, but I didn't before. So we got to find it. So that would be the DuckDuckGo search. Same information telling me about the company, stock price history, company news, information about its closest competitors, and also employment history of their CEO. As you'll notice, I'm not telling it who their CEO is. So let's launch that. Something interesting we saw right here. Oh, so much is happening that I can't even keep up with it. Okay, I'll let it go for a second. All right, all right, all right. Yes, I know you're pulling lots of information to come up with this response for me. Okay. Yes, those are all the competitors. Yes, see, this one put together the this one actually was in the technology sector. So I think this is actually pulling together at this point. I believe their CEOs information about them. I believe I'm actually I'll have to go back because there's one thing I wanted to show you before I did all this. And this waiting now is because it's actually putting together the final response, which sometimes takes a little bit longer because the context window is quite a bit bigger. These context windows can get quite large with these workflows. And yes, well, here we go. We have generated all this information. Let's see how we got there first. All the way back up here to what happening, wasn't it? So I've done this before, so I always find this response interesting. So Mistral Medium 3.1 has a cutoff date of November 2024, at least that's what it thinks it does, to which it's saying it doesn't know what CoreWeave stock symbol is, which is correct because CoreWeave recently went public. So it actually had to find it. It was not in any of its vector embeddings or anywhere in its knowledge base. So that's the first thing it did, is it did a DuckDuckGo search to find the stock ticker. So now we found it, we start finding other information. So this would be, if we would go back to the Yahoo Finance MCP server and the MCP Inspector, we would see this would be the information using the ticker. And now we find its CEO, Michael in Trader. So now we're getting stock performance. Now we're getting, what are we getting? We're getting some news. This is actually using the news function from the Yahoo Finance MCP server. A lot of news, a lot of information. So now we're getting, this is based on technology and top companies for its competitors. So we see NVIDIA, Microsoft, etc. And now we're finding some information about him, which is another DuckDuckGo request. All that information, it's now gathered everything it needs. Well, actually, we got some more information. What did it get? This is, oh, so it actually, so Mistral didn't like the news that it got and went to DuckDuckGo and found some more. That's why this one is such a big response. And we get this. From all that information, now we found CoreWeave stock symbol, CRWV. We found information about it. We found who its CEO is. We found stock price information. We found who are also in the technology sector. We found Michael Intrader, again, CEO, and we found information about what he's done before, his background. Quite a bit going on in just one response. And stay tuned. I'm working on a new demo that's going to be coming out very soon that's going to even throw in knowledge graphs, structured data. Yes, structured data is now live in version 1.3, even though we're already on to 1.4, but you know how that goes. So wait, all the things that are going back into it. Let me make sure I get them right. Knowledge graphs, structured data, uh, web searches. Got to find a way to use this Yahoo Finance server as well, and the SEC Edgar MCP server as well. So all those things, back over here, there we go, are going to be integrated in a single agentic flow that you'll be seeing processed all together at once. Stay tuned.